everyone, and welcome to Togetherness TV, and welcome to the Personal Growth Book Club. I'm Janell LaRue, and I'm going to be coming to you every now and then with book recommendations of great books that have to do with topics like psychology, relationships, life hacks, productivity, and all the great stuff that we talk about on Togetherness TV. I'm going to start with a great book today called Mindset by Carol Dweck, PhD. So everybody probably knows a person who always seems to be able to go with the flow no matter what the circumstances. And even if life throws them a lot of challenges, they may struggle for a while, but they seem to usually turn it around and even make a positive opportunity out of it. Maybe you're that person. But what is the secret of being like that? Well, Carol Dweck is a psychologist at Stanford University, and she's done a lot of research into how people learn and kind of how they see themselves. And this book talks about two different mindsets that people can have when looking at their own capabilities. One of them is kind of stress-inducing, and the other one is a lot more liberating. So there's the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. A fixed mindset is basically the idea that everybody's born with particular capabilities and qualities that are pretty much set in stone and are with you for life. For example, some people are really good in school, some people aren't. Some people are really talented athletes or artists or musicians, and some people just don't have that gene, right? So that's the fixed mindset. The growth mindset is the attitude that people can grow, and through their curiosity and their exploration and their persistence and effort, they can become much more proficient than they ever would have thought possible, even if they didn't start off thinking that they were a natural at something. So she gives a lot of examples of those two different kinds of mindsets throughout the book. But the first one that she talks about is when she went into a classroom and she gave children puzzles to complete. And all the kids really liked the puzzles until they started to get very hard and they didn't know what to do anymore. And then the kids kind of broke into two groups in terms of how they responded. Some kids just really didn't want to go any further and they felt discouraged or frustrated. And some kids were like, ooh, now this is getting interesting. And they were actually intrigued. So Dr. Dweck thought that the kids who were frustrated were actually pretty relatable, because I think for all of us as adults, we can feel like we hit a wall at something, we don't really know what we're doing anymore. And it can be very frustrating. But she wanted to know what was the secret of the kids that were still having fun, even though they were not getting the puzzles right anymore. And it turned out that the difference was that the kids who were frustrated were kind of seeing the puzzle as some kind of indication of where their skill level was, like how smart they were, where they compared to the rest of the kids. And the other kids were just thinking about the puzzle. So I think that when it comes to how we see our growth potential, this obviously has a lot of applications. When people think that there's just a certain range of capability that they can have, and after that they really can't go beyond it, then they start to think about everything they do as an indication of where their capability is. So if you feel that way and you start to have problems with something, you're not really going to be motivated to try different things. You're not going to really be motivated to ask questions. You're just kind of going to want to deflect and get away from the situation because it feels like you're stuck. But if you have a growth mindset, then you can have more of a sense of curiosity and fun, and whatever the ups and downs are, like you can sort of have the peaks of times where you feel like you're achieving and the valleys of when things aren't going so well, but the road is still going forward either way and you're learning. So that's really the growth mindset. So why do so many people have a fixed mindset? Or why do we have sometimes a fixed mindset in some things, even though we have a growth mindset in other things? Well, there's a lot of things, influences that we can have from the culture around us, that can cause us to have more of a fixed mindset. For one thing, society really idolizes talented people, like artists and athletes, and the way that we talk about them often really focuses on their talent and their genius, and maybe, they were already showing how great they were when they were 4 years old, and doesn't really talk so much about all the hours of practice they put in and the mentoring they got and like the positive coincidences and things that happen for them along the way, because it doesn't make such an impressive narrative, right? But then we kind of start to think that those people are almost a different species of human from us and that we could never do what they did. Another thing that can really contribute to having a fixed mindset is when we're growing up, we have grades, we have standardized tests, and we start to look at a number or a letter as representing our capabilities, even though what they really are supposed to represent is just what we know about a particular topic at a particular point in time. And an interesting thing that she brings up in the book is the IQ test. And the man who developed the IQ test actually wanted it to just be a test of people's knowledge. And he thought that people's IQ could change over time, but that's not really how we see it now. So when it comes to working with children, she really recommends that people focus on their effort rather than talking about their abilities. And that goes either way, whether they're struggling or whether they're doing really well. And it seems really obvious why labeling someone who is struggling would be a bad thing. But for the kids who are always getting A's and people are talking about them as being brilliant, that can put a lot of weight on their shoulders that they always have to live up to that. And that can cause them actually not to take as many chances and try as many things. So one of my friends had dyslexia when he was growing up, and it was at a time when people didn't really know what dyslexia was. And so they kind of labeled him as not being very capable, and they put him in a class where he wasn't very challenged. And luckily, he was able to find a tutor who could help him. And then he really had to have a growth mindset to be able to catch up and not feel embarrassed about where he was at with learning. But now he's read more books than practically anybody I know, and he's a writer. The kid that couldn't spell is now a writer. And he still actually has some issues with spelling, but it doesn't matter because he has spell check. So having a growth mindset isn't always like thinking that you're going to be perfect at everything you do, but it's just like being open to opportunities and knowing that there's ways that you can make things work. So how do we develop a growth mindset if we don't have one? Well, the main thing is to really focus on the opportunities that are in your life and all the positive things that you can explore, and just really kind of be focused on the process more than the product. We don't always have to have an impressive product every day. It's really the process of learning and making friends and forming connections and having great experiences. Those are the things that really make life worth living. So, and I think we can have a growth mindset about having a growth mindset, because a lot of us, kind of need to work on this. But it's a great book, and there's so much more in here, so many stories, so much research, and I really hope it's helpful for you. That's it, everybody. Thanks for tuning into the book club. Send us a message if you have any comments or questions, and we'll see you next time.